So I have a reoccurring thought um, that, like, when I'm in a group, that I need to think of something interesting to say.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
tend to be quiet and let other people talk in a group situation. And I've noticed that what I've been asking myself when I've been in that situation, why aren't you talking? Why aren't you participating? And then I have the thought that it
Hmm.
has to be something interesting, like not just to talk to talk.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Okay. Well, let's do it. So you need to think of something interesting to say when you're in this kind of a situation. Is that true?
No,
So how do you react? What happens when you think that you need to think of something interesting to say?
I feel phony. I feel like I'm trying to come up with something interesting to say. Like, I don't feel like I'm being natural or genuine. It's not like it just doesn't come out. Like, I feel like I gotta compose something. So
Mm,
I feel like I'm trying. I don't really feel like I'm just having natural conversation. Like I do one on one much better than I do in a group. So I
yeah.
don't feel like I have much interesting to say. I start to, analyze that. So I kind of beat myself up because I'm not coming up with anything that's that interesting. Um,
Yeah.
like, so I'm
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, just stay quiet, don't let everybody else talk. Um, that I feel nervous too. I feel like, oh, they're not going to notice. Like, I haven't said anything. Everybody else has said so much, and I haven't said anything yet. Like, so I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes me nervous and less than, not equal, smaller, quieter. Um, Yet to join doesn't seem the right thing either. Like just to say something, or just to agree with somebody, or just to, I don't know. It's hard to sit, like it's awkward, and I don't enjoy it.
Totally. Yeah. Like two beliefs almost can at the same time. One is I have to say something, and on top of that, it better be interesting. And so, like, I can't be quiet, but I can't come up with something at the same, or I have to come up with something. It's like a lot of pressure, a lot of
Yeah,
additional
pressure.
stress, or I can see where nervousness can come in. Yeah. Okay, so who would you be in a group without the thought that you need to think of something interesting to say?
I wouldn't be editing myself. I would just say it. What what crossed my mind. I would just be more relaxed because I know I don't have to say anything.
And how do you experience the group when you're in it and you're not thinking that you need to think of something interesting to say?
More equal, more like I have as right to be there as everybody else. Um, it's more joining. than them comparing the group to me. It's more I'm part of the group.
Yeah.
The reason, the commonality of the group itself, like what we all have in common, why we are a group.
Yeah. As a reference, like who are you in a one-on-one interaction? And I assume there you don't have the thought that you need to think of something interesting to say. What's it like there by comparison, just as a reference?
It feels very back and forth, equal. Like I'm not without thoughts. I'm not. Um, I don't edit.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. This thought, I need to think of something interesting to say, makes me edit, makes me censor myself, makes me judge everything that I'm thinking or thinking of saying instead of just saying it.
Right.
So without the thought, who would you be in the group?
Much more relaxed, less editing. I just would say it. I wouldn't have to go through that interesting filter. It wouldn't have to make the cut like of a quality
Right.
statement. It would just be a normal conversation.
That's it. Cool. So let's turn the thought around. I need to think of something interesting to say.
Well, I don't, because I can stay quiet if I choose to. If I don't have something
Oh,
to add, um, when I'm when I think rationally about it, I don't think um, that there's like an interesting award at the end of the group meeting. Like I don't have to be more interesting than anybody else or as interesting as anybody else. I mean, they're just rambling sometimes. It's like,
absolutely.
so I don't have to have something interesting to say. I can just talk, just participate, just stay on the subject. It doesn't have to be interesting. It's
Mm,
just my thought. It's think of it as sharing myself comparatively to worrying about what they're thinking of my conversation or my reply
right.
or interjection.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be interesting.
Right.
It's just an exchange. It's your presence there. Maybe you're saying something, maybe you're not. Maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not. But there's a group dynamic happening there. And I don't need to think of something interesting to say to be the one that everyone says, "Oh, wow, yeah, great job."
She's so interesting. Yeah.
She's so interesting. Yeah, she gets the interesting award at the end.
um, so I don't need to think of something interesting to say. Because what I think other people say, like I can't know. Like in that sense, like what they're saying, I may find interesting or not interesting. Like they don't know.
Right.
It's like, so I can't know, even if I come up with what I think is the most original, interesting interjection into this conversation, other people could just be like, well, I've thought of that before. I've done that before. Like, no big deal. Like, so I can never know what somebody else really thinks is interesting or not.
Exactly. I have to get way into their business, which I can't even know, to try to guess what will be interesting. That's what makes trying to find something interesting hard, right? Because I'm trying to figure out what's going to be interesting for them, and then I get all tangled as a result.
Right.
Even just interesting for me is like I'm getting tangled, right? But let alone then if I try to figure out what's going to be interesting for them, it's just crazy. Instead of just whatever comes out of my mouth,
Right.
even if that's nothing. So I don't need to think of something interesting to say. Any other reasons why that could be true?
Well, it's certainly not as critical as it feels. It's, I mean, there's no benefit or loss. I mean, nothing's really going to change. The group meeting is going to end. It's just, and everybody's going to go back on with their lives. I mean, there's no like consequence of saying something that's not
Right.
interesting. I'm not going to get kicked out of the group. Like, no soup for you. Yeah, it's like, no group for you. Like, because I said something that didn't live up to their expectations. I feel like it's critical when I'm thinking that thought. Like,
Right.
something's, depending on it. Where in reality, there's nothing depending on anything that I say.
Exactly. And what I love about listening, being a listener instead of a speaker, is that it's such a service to those who do have interesting things to say. They get to be heard, and I get to hear interesting things. It's almost like there's almost a turnaround in there about I need to listen to interesting things other people say. Maybe that's the turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy what other people are saying. So yeah, how about so for you, any examples for that turnaround or any other turnarounds that will resonate with you?
Yeah, because I mean, most of the time, I feel like I spend a lot of time by myself, so I'm very well aware of what I think. So it's like hearing other people is very interesting to me.
I love it. So
It's like
for
I don't need to hear
if
my own
interest,
voice
if being
because I hear it all the time. I hear myself talking all the time.
right,
So it's good for me just to listen. It's a pleasure to listen to other people talk.
you get new ideas, you get new perspectives, and you
Yeah.
don't have to come up with anything. There's no pressure in it. It's easy. And like most of those interesting ideas I've had, I've already had them and I've thought of them myself. I already enjoyed them. They're not saying them again, they're not that interesting anymore to me. So, but listening, new stuff comes in. And sometimes what I find is listening to new things coming in gives me idea. Somehow I spontaneously come up with something new from my own side too, right? So I do end up saying something, but I wasn't trying to say something. It was just like, oh, that's really cool. And then, oh, and that reminds me of, and like that,
Yeah.
which is exactly the way I am when I'm on one-on-one with somebody, right? Like back and forth, like you described.
Right.
What is it about being in a group that makes us think that we're on stage and that we have to entertain and that we have to have a script and we have to have make people laugh. And I mean, is that really true?
Yeah, they didn't buy a ticket to come see me. It's like I don't owe them anything. You know, it's like there's no pressure
Exactly.
of performing because there's been
No,
a monetary exchange here.
exactly. So that leaves me free to say nothing, to listen, to say something if I feel moved to, free, instead of pressurized to do something that I don't know how to do. That's stressful.
Yes. I'm
Cool.
breathing
Well, thank
deeper
you.
just
It's a really
thinking
nice
of
piece of
that.
work. Yeah, me too. I'm just noticing even how I'm talking in this interaction, and I'm going, nice not to have a plan here. Just, I don't know if I'll say something dumb or something interesting or say nothing at all, and it's all okay,
Yeah.
even with other people watching. Yeah, there's freedom in that.
And then your mind is clear to actually say something like you said new, that you don't have to bore yourself. Oh,
Exactly. And what I notice is I take more space. There's more because I'm not trying to fill the space with more words just to say something. There's more space in my timing, and it allows me to kind of settle into myself again. And from there, who knows what comes out again? Something unexpected, and that is interesting. But it doesn't have to be. That's the interesting
mhm.
point about it. Yeah.